She gave him everything: love, loyalty, even a child. But when a younger woman caught his eye, he did the unthinkable. He had his own wife thrown in jail, just to be with his mistress. But karma? It never forgets. You're lucky, they always told Emily. Daniel's the kind of man women dream of marrying. And for years, she believed it. Daniel Morgan wasn't just a successful businessman. He was charming, generous, and adored by everyone in their quiet Massachusetts town. Emily had met him when she was just 21, working part-time at a bookstore while studying graphic design. He swept her off her feet with roses, long walks, and late-night talks about building a life together. She never imagined that 10 years later, she'd be staring through the bars of a jail cell, abandoned and accused of a crime she didn't commit, all because the man she loved wanted to replace her. 10 years earlier, Emily stood in front of the mirror, brushing her hair as Daniel adjusted his tie. "I have that meeting in Boston today," he said, sipping his coffee. "Should be back late." Emily smiled. "Drive safe. And don't forget Liam's parent-teacher meeting tomorrow." Daniel kissed her forehead. "Wouldn't miss it." She watched him leave with the same pride she always had. They had built a beautiful life. Daniel's logistics company was booming. Their house sat in a cozy suburb, and their son Liam had just turned 6. She spent her days volunteering at Liam's school, painting when time allowed, and managing their family calendar with care. Her friends called her the perfect wife, but perfection, as she would soon learn, was just the surface. The forgotten phone. One Tuesday evening, Daniel came home later than usual, nearly midnight. He smelled faintly of perfume, but Emily brushed it off. She didn't want to seem paranoid. He was working hard, providing for them. But as she cleaned the living room the next morning, she found something strange wedged beneath the couch cushions: a second phone. Not Daniel's usual iPhone. This one was old, cheap, locked. Her hands shook as she turned it over. Why would Daniel hide a second phone? Emily had never been the jealous type. She trusted him. But curiosity burned a hole in her chest. She charged the phone in secret and waited until Daniel left for a meeting that afternoon. It had no fingerprint lock, no password. When the screen lit up, her world dimmed. Her name was Cleo. "Last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about your hands. Wish you were here instead of her. Booked our hotel in Miami." She'll never know. The messages spanned weeks, months. Some were recent, others from when Emily had been in the hospital recovering from her C-section. The photos were even worse. Cleo was younger, with wavy dark hair, long legs, and a smile that screamed danger. She posed in lingerie, on hotel beds, and once even wearing Emily's missing necklace. Emily couldn't breathe. She stared at the screen, tears falling silently. The man she had loved for 10 years had been living a lie. And worse, he had dragged their home into it. When Daniel came home that night, she confronted him, her voice trembling. He didn't even deny it. "You went through my things?" he asked coldly. "I went through the phone that you hid," she cried. "How could you do this to me?" "To Liam?" Daniel scoffed. "You don't get to play the victim, Emily. You stopped being a wife a long time ago." Her world cracked. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe I deserve someone who actually excites me." He stormed out, leaving her stunned. Her hands shook. Her breath was uneven. She thought that was the worst moment of her life. But she was wrong. The arrest. 3 days later, just as she dropped Liam at school and returned home, 2 unmarked police cars pulled up in front of their house. "Emily Morgan?" an officer asked. She nodded, confused. "You're under arrest for embezzlement and fraud against Morgan Logistics." The world spun. What? There must be a mistake. They didn't listen. Cold metal clamped around her wrists. Neighbors peeked out their windows. Her face was shoved into the back seat. At the station, she was told Daniel had pressed charges. He claimed Emily had siphoned over $300,000 from the company's accounts, money she had never even seen. She screamed, cried, begged. But the paper trail was there, transfers made in her name with her signature. Except she had never signed anything. The setup. During the court hearing, Daniel sat on the witness stand, calm and collected. "I trusted her," he said, voice heavy with emotion. "I had no idea she would betray me like this. She emptied accounts, Forged records. I didn't want to believe it, but the numbers don't lie. Emily sat frozen. She wasn't just being divorced. She was being destroyed. Her lawyer tried to argue that the documents had been forged, but every transaction had her digital signature. The bank statements matched. And Daniel, who looked like the perfect grieving husband, had the jury wrapped around his finger. She was convicted and sentenced to 4 years in prison. Inside the walls, prison wasn't what broke her. It was the thought of Liam, growing up thinking his mother was a criminal, being raised by a father who would treat his own wife for a few nights of pleasure. Her days became routine. Wake up, eat, work in the kitchen, sleep, repeat. Her cellmate Rosa was a tough, older woman with tired eyes, a former paralegal who'd been arrested on tax evasion. She noticed Emily crying one night. "You don't look like you belong here," Rosa muttered. "I don't," Emily whispered. "My husband put me here so he could be with his mistress." Rosa narrowed her eyes. "Tell me everything." And so she did. Over the next few weeks, Rosa listened, asked questions, poked holes in Daniel's story. "You said the bank records had your signature?" Rosa asked. Emily nodded. "Digital or paper?" "Digital." Rosa sat up straighter. "That's interesting. You ever used DocuSign?" "No." "Then someone used your email and faked your authorization." "I've seen it before." Hope sparked inside Emily's chest. On the outside, while Emily spent nights staring at the concrete ceiling, Daniel and Cleo enjoyed luxury vacations, fine dining, and a new apartment in Boston. He told people Emily had mental issues. He showed up at Liam's school with smiles and gifts. But cracks started showing. Cleo wasn't interested in playing mom. She wanted Daniel's money, his connections, and his attention. And she didn't like that he still brought up Emily, usually to make himself look like the victim. One night, she shouted, "You can stop acting." "She's gone." "You got what you wanted." Daniel snapped. "I built my life on that woman." "You don't understand what I sacrificed." Cleo rolled her eyes. "You didn't sacrifice. You stole." That night, she left. Daniel sat alone with his whiskey, staring at the fireplace as his dream life began to crumble. Emily's plan begins. After 6 months, Emily filed for retrial with Rosa's help. They compiled a case, focusing on digital forgery, the second phone, and the fact that she never had access to company funds. Emily wrote to an investigative journalist named Lydia Grayson, who had covered wrongful convictions before. Lydia agreed to look into her case. 2 months later, Emily received a letter. "I believe you. I'm digging deeper." Her heart beat faster than it had in months. Meanwhile, Daniel received a call he never expected. A journalist wanted to ask questions about his company's financials and about his wife's sudden conviction. He hung up, panic crawling into his chest. Emily wasn't staying silent. Bars, gray walls, cold silence. This was Emily's world now. The woman who once spent her mornings painting and packing lunches was now wearing a beige jumpsuit, eating off metal trays, and sleeping on a narrow cot under buzzing fluorescent lights. Yet, in the middle of this prison nightmare, something dangerous began to grow inside her. Hope. The prison bond. Emily's unlikely ally, Rosa, became her lifeline. Rosa was sharp, smart, a woman who had once worked behind desks at a high-end law firm before her downfall. She'd seen men like Daniel before. Powerful, charming, ruthless. She believed every word of Emily's story. "We're going to find your way out of here," Rosa said one night as they sat against the concrete wall. "But you've got to stay strong, stay quiet, and stay smart." Emily nodded, though tears threatened to fall again. She hadn't seen her son, Liam, in over 6 months. Daniel had full custody. Life without Emily. On the outside, Daniel Morgan was trying to live his best life, but Cleo, his mistress, wasn't cooperating. The fire between them had cooled quickly after Emily's conviction. Cleo no longer needed to be secretive. The thrill was gone. "What do you mean we're not going to Italy?" Cleo whined, throwing her purse on the couch of their upscale condo. "I have a business to run," Daniel snapped, loosening his tie. Cleo's eyes narrowed. "I didn't help you destroy your wife to sit here bored." Daniel shot her a warning glance. "Don't say things like that." Cleo folded her arms. "Why not? You said it yourself. You planted everything. She'll never be able to prove it. Daniel's phone buzzed. An email from his company's legal advisor appeared. They were being audited. He didn't answer Cleo. The fire inside. In prison, Emily kept herself alive through routine. She worked in the library in the mornings and spent evenings reading law books Rosa gave her. Rosa taught her how to read financial reports, identify fake signatures, and question timelines. They reviewed every transaction Daniel had used against her. He used your email to approve money transfers, Rosa muttered. He made it look like you stole from the company. But these IP logs, they show the login came from his office. Emily leaned closer. Can we prove it? Rosa smiled for the first time in weeks. We might. A letter of hope. One morning, Emily was called to the warden's office. She assumed the worst, maybe another hearing or a new charge. But instead, she was handed a letter. The return address read, Lydia Grayson, investigative journalist. Emily opened it with trembling fingers. Emily, I believe you. I've spoken with a bank IT tech who flagged unusual login patterns the week before your arrest. I also discovered that the second phone you found was purchased under Daniel's assistant's name. I'm requesting permission to visit and record your statement. If you're willing to fight, I'll help you tell the world. Lydia, Emily stared at the letter for a long moment before whispering, yes. Yes, I'll fight. Daniel's empire cracks. Back in Boston, Daniel's company was slipping. A whistleblower had contacted the IRS about questionable bookkeeping. Clients were canceling deals. His reputation, once spotless, had started to sour. But what shook Daniel the most was the voicemail left by Lydia Grayson. I'm preparing a public story on your wife's case. Care to comment on the fraudulent documents that bear her name? Or the phone that links you to Cleo during the money transfers? Daniel deleted the message. Cleo walked in as he poured himself a drink. You look like hell, she said with a smirk. He turned on her. Did you talk to anyone? Anyone ask you questions about Emily? Cleo raised an eyebrow. Relax. Why would I? I'm not the one who forged documents. Daniel threw the glass at the wall. Emily speaks. Lydia visited the prison the following week. She wore a navy suit and carried a recorder. Her tone was professional, but her eyes softened when she saw Emily's pale, tired face. You ready to tell your story? She asked. Emily nodded. It's time. For 2 hours, Emily told her everything. The affair, the second phone, the night of her arrest, the trial, and the heartbreak of losing her son. Lydia left with a promise. I'm publishing this in 2 weeks. It's time people saw who your husband really is. That night, for the first time since her arrest, Emily smiled. The public backlash. The article dropped like a bomb. Wife or scapegoat? The mysterious fall of Emily Morgan. It included anonymous sources from Daniel's company, expert testimony from digital security consultants, Emily's personal letter to the public, a screenshot of a message from Cleo, accidentally sent to Daniel's office email. Social media exploded. #Justice for Emily trended for 2 days. Talk shows began discussing wrongful convictions. The state prosecutor's office opened a reinvestigation into her case. Inside prison, Emily could barely sleep. Hope had turned into determination. I'm getting out, she whispered to Rosa. I can feel it. Daniel loses control. Daniel was summoned by the district attorney's office for questioning. He tried to remain calm, denying all allegations. But the pressure grew. His assistant quit. His lawyer resigned. Cleo? Gone. She'd packed up and disappeared after the article dropped. No note. No call. She'd taken one of Daniel's black credit cards and vanished overseas. His empire was crumbling, and for the first time, he was afraid. Emily's breakthrough. 4 months after Lydia's article went viral, Emily was granted a retrial. Rosa helped her prepare. Lydia testified. So did the digital forensics expert, confirming that the login IPs for the embezzlement were traced back to Daniel's personal office, not Emily. Records showed Daniel approved the transfers using her email and falsified timestamps. The jury, once so quick to judge her, now looked at her with sympathy and shame. After a tense week of court hearings, Emily was declared innocent. She stood in the courtroom, sobbing as her name was cleared. The judge offered a formal apology for the system's failure. Emily didn't care about the applause. She only wanted one thing now: her son. A mother returns. Emily raced to Liam's school the very next morning. He was taller now. His face was more serious. But the moment he saw her across the field, he dropped his backpack and ran straight into her arms. "I missed you, Mom," he whispered. She held him so tight, her heart felt like it might explode. "I missed you more than anything in the world," she cried. Part 3. Revenge in Court. The courtroom had once felt like a grave to Emily. Now it was her battlefield. Back from the dead, Emily had been out of prison for nearly 4 months. Free, but not satisfied. Daniel Morgan, the man who sent her to jail to chase a life of lust and greed, was still walking the streets of Boston, wearing expensive suits and smiling for cameras. But not for long. Emily had teamed up with Lydia, Rosa, and a top-tier lawyer named Marcus Vance, a legal firebrand who specialized in civil lawsuits for wrongful conviction and corporate fraud. "This isn't just about revenge," Marcus told her. "This is about accountability. You don't just want to ruin him. You want to make sure he never does this to anyone again." Emily nodded. "He destroyed my name, my family, my life. He doesn't deserve to rebuild his empire over my ashes." The charges. Marcus filed a civil lawsuit worth $25 million, citing defamation, fraud, forgery, emotional distress, wrongful imprisonment. But that wasn't all. A criminal case was also building quietly in the background. Daniel's former assistant, under pressure from the IRS and scared of prison time, began talking. He handed over emails, phone records, and a recorded voice note in which Daniel admitted, "She'll be out of the way. It's done. I made it all look like her fault." The legal world gasped. Emily's case, once a forgotten headline, was suddenly the talk of the city. Daniel's last party. Daniel tried to pretend everything was fine. He threw a gala for one of his charity foundations, dressed in a black tuxedo, giving a bold speech about second chances and building brighter futures. But as the cameras flashed, he noticed something chilling. Emily was there. Not as a guest. Not as an intruder. She had been invited by the new director of the foundation, a woman who had read Lydia's article and believed Emily was the true voice of survival. Emily walked past Daniel calmly. He froze. The crowd parted. For a moment, it felt like Judgment Day. "Enjoy the lights," she said quietly. "They'll be out soon." The civil courtroom war. The lawsuit went public. Tabloids ran with headlines like, "Wife sues CEO who framed her for prison. Justice comes knocking. Emily Morgan versus Daniel Morgan. Mistress money. And a marriage torn by lies." The court dates were set. Inside the courtroom, Emily took the stand again, but this time she was not the accused. She was the witness. The warrior. Emily's testimony. "I trusted my husband," she said, voice calm but powerful. "I believed in him, loved him, and he used that love to bury me." She spoke about the night she was arrested in her own home, the pain of hearing her son cry as police dragged her away, the humiliation of being labeled a thief and a fraud, the silence of the prison walls, and the fire she built inside herself, day after day, to survive. The jury listened with rapt attention. Even the judge looked visibly moved. The smoking gun. Then came the audio file. Daniel's own voice, bragging about framing Emily. It played across the courtroom like a bomb. Daniel's face went pale. His lawyers fumbled. The entire courtroom knew he was finished. But Emily wasn't done. Liam's voice. In a twist of fate, her son Liam was allowed to submit a video testimony under supervision. He looked straight into the camera, clutching the stuffed dinosaur Emily had given him years ago. "My mom is the strongest person I know," he said. "She didn't leave me. She didn't steal. My dad lied. And I just want her to be happy again." The court grew silent. Tears filled Emily's eyes. Even strangers in the back row cried. Daniel crumbles. In desperation, Daniel's lawyers tried to negotiate. They offered a settlement, $10 million. Emily refused. Marcus smiled at the jury and said, "My client isn't here to bargain with evil. She's here to destroy it." Daniel, facing both public disgrace and looming criminal charges, broke down on the stand. He admitted. He planted the phone. He forged her digital signatures. He orchestrated the transfers. He even convinced Cleo to help in exchange for luxury. I didn't think she'd fight back, he muttered. The verdict. After 6 days of hearings, the jury returned. They awarded Emily $30 million in damages, full custody of Liam, a formal court ruling of wrongful conviction and character defamation. Daniel was let out in handcuffs moments later by federal agents on separate criminal charges. The cameras captured every second. It was national news by morning. A new beginning. 1 year later, Emily opened a nonprofit called Second Light, helping women wrongfully imprisoned find legal support and emotional healing. She bought a small house near the coast, where she and Liam painted the walls together. At night, when he went to sleep, Emily sometimes stared at the stars and whispered, "I'm still standing." She began painting again, not to escape, but to celebrate. The final scene. One afternoon, Emily held an art exhibition in Boston. The biggest painting in the room was titled, "The Cage and the Key," a woman inside a prison cell. But her hand, it was holding the key to her own freedom. Guests clapped, and among them, Lydia smiled proudly. "You didn't just survive," she told Emily. "You rewrote the ending." Part 4. Her name was Justice. 1 year later. Boston in spring was gentle. The breeze carried scents of cherry blossoms and distant ocean mist. Emily Morgan stood on the balcony of her new home, a modest coastal house where waves kissed the rocks each morning. Her son Liam was playing in the garden with their dog Jasper. Emily took a deep breath. It still felt surreal to be free, but this time she wasn't haunted by her past. She was defined by her fight for the future. Second Light Foundation, her nonprofit, Second Light, had grown faster than anyone imagined. What began as a one-room support group had become a nationwide movement, with lawyers, therapists, and former inmates all working together. They'd helped over 40 women clear their names in just the first year. Some of them had been framed, like Emily. Others were victims of corrupt officials, abusive partners, or twisted systems. Each story was different. But the ending had hope. Liam's healing. Liam, now 8, had grown more confident. He was no longer the quiet boy hiding in the corners of classrooms. He laughed, played, painted, and every night before bed, he hugged Emily and said, "You're the best mom in the world." That alone was worth surviving everything. Cleo's fate. Cleo, Daniel's mistress and partner in crime, had taken a plea deal in exchange for testifying. She served 18 months in a women's correctional facility and was now under supervised release. Emily heard from a lawyer that Cleo had begun writing a memoir called The Price of Desire. Emily didn't care. Let her write. Some people profit from pain. Emily had chosen to heal from it instead. Daniel in prison. Daniel Morgan was serving a 22-year sentence in a federal prison. His empire was gone. His name erased from business boards and magazines. Once hailed as Boston's business genius, he was now just inmate #4405783. Emily didn't check the news anymore. She never visited the courtroom during his appeals. He was in the past, and she had finally found peace without needing revenge. A letter from the inside. One day, Emily received a letter, postmarked from Daniel's prison. She froze. Part of her wanted to toss it, but curiosity won. The letter read, "Emily, I know I can't undo what I did. I destroyed the one person who ever truly loved me. I see that now. I see it every night in this cold cell where mirrors are made of guilt. I'm sorry. Not to be forgiven, but because it's the only truth left in me." There was no signature. Just a single line at the bottom. "I called you weak, but you are always stronger than me." Emily folded the letter and burned it in the fireplace. Not in anger, but as a ritual. The final thread, now gone. A chance at love again. 6 months later, at a gallery event, Emily met David Hart, an art teacher and widower raising a teenage daughter. He was kind, soft-spoken, and not interested in her headlines. They talked about colors, books, healing. He didn't treat her like a survivor or a symbol. He treated her like a woman. For the first time in years, she laughed in someone's arms. They didn't rush into love, but they didn't run from it either. Legacy on canvas. Emily painted again. Not dream men this time. but real women. Survivors. Mothers who fought for their children. Women who broke free from chains, both legal and emotional. Her exhibition, Her Name Was Justice, traveled to 5 major cities. One painting stood at the center of it all. A woman holding a broken wedding ring in one hand and a gavel in the other. The caption read, "He framed me with lies. I framed my future with truth." Final scene, a voice for the voiceless. Emily stood on stage at a national women's conference. Hundreds of survivors clapped as she took the mic. She didn't speak like a victim. She spoke like a leader. I was caged by love, betrayed by the one who swore to protect me. But I'm here to tell you, the truth always finds its way. If someone tries to silence your voice, scream louder. If they lock you away, find the key. And when they say you can't rise, stand up and show them what justice looks like. The crowd stood, cheered. Some cried. Emily smiled, a quiet, powerful smile. She had lost everything and rebuilt it piece by piece. YouTube outro narration script. She was framed by love, but finished with freedom. Emily's journey proves the strongest revenge is not hate, it's healing. If you found this story powerful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Color Off Stories for more emotional journeys and true redemption arcs. Because sometimes life writes the best stories, and the strongest women rewrite them.